So in this part, I welcome Dr. Christine Ichmado, Project Manager, RKY Digital Solutions, and Dr. Saeed, Research Scientist and Academic Tutor, Nigerian University, for this session, COP 2030 Sustainable Energy Actions Plan. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This session is about loss and damage, a moral imperative to act. As we all know, the world needs to catch up on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions and in efforts to adapt the changing climate. Actions that still need to be improved are both to developing countries that remain insufficient as climatic risks grow and impact increasingly devastate the lives and livelihoods of the vulnerable countries and the communities. Moreover, for some people in some places, there is still time to attempt to adapt the impacts of the climatic change. The Intergovernmental Panel of Climatic Change, IPCC, has warned that even if effective actions to limit global temperature increases to 1.5 degrees centigrade were put in place, the loss and damages stemming from the climatic change are not preventable, as there is locked in the level of warming that is already causing unavoidable consequences. The devastating impacts of the climatic change can result in unquantifiable losses and damages, particularly for many communities and countries in the developing world, and loss of lives and livelihoods, as well as the degradation of the territory, farmland and cultural heritage with indigenous knowledge, societal and cultural identity, biodiversity and ecosystem services, etc., etc., etc. So on this, to keep an alert on this loss and damage, we have Dr. Adebisi, who has joined us here to throw some light on this loss and damage and its moral imperative to act. On that note, let's please welcome Dr. Adebisi to take over the charge. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Adebisi. Please, the dial is all yours.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And yes, let me just introduce our. It was a little network issue. I am happy to be here, and I want to introduce myself as the global facilitator of the Global Scholars and Leaders Support Program, and also a kind of a boarding organization to Global Sustainable Futures Network in the UK, and also we have a membership around the world. And we have asked different experts to actually take care of different aspects of our discussion and our presentations. And I am happy that one of us is to actually present on this very particular topic. He is an expert and he has done a lot of work to actually inform us and also enlighten us and also contribute some ideas that are going to be of great impact to this very discussion and this very conference. And that is Mr. Ijimade. Hello, are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Chuku, are you there? Please, just a minute.
He is logged in with GSLSN.
Yeah, no, I asked our members to actually join. Ask the members of the network to actually join on this very presentation. Yes, you can continue the preambles, ma. Let me quickly check on him.
Okay. So when we talk about the loss and damage, that means the different things to different groups, and there is no definition of the loss plus damage in the UN framework Convention on Climatic Change, that is UNFCCC. So loss and damage can generally be understood as a neglected, divided upon climatic change that occurs despite or. So that's how we call it in these days within quotations. So waste and damage are frequently categorized as either economic or non-economic. The financial loss and damage are negative impacts to which we can apply a monetary value. Hopefully everybody will agree with me, I think. These are the matters such as costing of rebuilding services that have been damaged due to food and loss of revenue from the crops that were destroyed due to dirt. So when it comes to the famine or lack of water, lack of sanitation, we can clearly say that it really has an environmental impact. So the non-economic loss and damage or the negative impact to which it is difficult and it is impossible to allocate a monetary value for this. So these include the trauma for experiencing from the tropical cyclone, with the loss of collaboration due to the total of people and other loss of biodiversity. So on that note, I would like to open it to any other speaker who would like to throw light on this particular topic, or we can go ahead with Dr. Adibisi. Is there anybody who would like to add on to it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to add on to it. There are over 370 million indigenous people globally, and these indigenous people they occupy 1/4 of the terrestrial surface, which holds 80% of the Earth's remaining biodiversity. However, indigenous people, although they are 6% of the world's population, they are 15% of the world's poorest people. The reason being is that the issue here is that we have remote, although mineral-rich regions that are inhabited by indigenous people that do not have their opinions sought after in regards to decision-making that is made on the land. And this impedes the climate change agenda. So this makes a number of indigenous people consider climate change as an issue for the future, therefore not a primary concern. And this in itself is a major concern. And so there are various proposals for change that we can undergo. And one of the changes that we can do is that we can first provide these indigenous peoples and the value of their lands with immense support alongside resources to aid in the effective participation, so that they realize just how valuable it is to ensure that their lands are being, if not kept in this condition, is being used in a more responsible manner and not just to be burnt down and to be used for unsustainable urbanization. Another proposal is that we need to create green strategies for them in a level that they will understand just how important it is to pinpoint what is needed from them. Where can they adapt? How can they adapt? And how can we do it in a way that we're bringing them in the conversation? Because these lands are very important, not just to them, but for the earth as a whole. But we want to ensure that even if we want to develop, that we're putting all these holistic approaches in our minds. Another proposal is to ensure that that any resources that have been harbored from these lands, that we have government financing and funding. Government financing and funding ought to have a certain amount of profit generated from such infrastructures funneled to indigenous education programs. So all of these proposals will aid in making the indigenous peoples, and I'm just using the indigenous peoples here as an example rather, but they do play a very pivotal role, including indigenous youth as well. And a way they can do this, a way indigenous youth can help, is that if they talk to their local mayors and governors, they can highlight each of their stance on the issue that is climate change. And this will help in highlighting where to broaden discussions on and where regional authorities need to focus on. Because these lands are as valuable as gold. And we need to ensure that if we cannot leave them alone, how we sustainably enhance them, or how we sustainably undergoing urbanization through the use of the indigenous lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jessica. That was impromptu, but still very prompt. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Adibisi.
Yes, thank you so much. I have checked on our speaker. Actually, he is fully loaded to present something amazing, but he is actually working with the time of exactly the hour that we have given to him. So he will join us very, very shortly now. But let's keep on the conversation so that we can enjoy what he's actually bringing on board. Thank you so much.
That's true. So coming back to the loss and damage with reference to the impacts of the climatic change. So that cannot be avoided either by mitigation, as Jessica was mentioning, either by mitigation or reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, or adaptation of when we talk about adaptation, it's like adjusting our practices, processes, and structures to minimize the harm which is going to be created, the devastation that we are just heading towards. So as climatic change intensifies the losses in the sense irreversible harms such as loss of lives, loss of biodiversity, and the loss of cultural heritage, and the damages that could come from the recoverable harms such as damaged infrastructure or the economic losses that we all underwent when it was COVID pandemic time becomes more pronounced, particularly affecting the vulnerable communities and the nations that has contributed least to the problem, as Jessica was mentioning there. So moving ahead, when we talk about the moral imperative to act, the first pointer that anybody should keep in mind, any country should keep in mind, is equality and justice. And there is no compromise for this. Many of the countries most affected by the climatic change have historically contributed the least to the greenhouse gas emissions. And the principle of equity demands that those who have benefited most from the industrialization, the fossil fuel consumption, bear a greater responsibility for addressing these adverse impacts. There are more things to add on. I think our speakers joined the session. So, yes, Dr. Debussy, should we continue or... Doctor? Yes. Dr. Debussy, would you like to take charge?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I think yes, I lost my network, and yes, the speaker we joined us very, very shortly now. Like I said, the topic, I prefer it to be handled by the experts because they have a lot of information, and also they have so many experience that can add value to this very discussion like this. And when we are talking about this very particular topic, it is not an open-ended topic that anybody can just use experience to just talk about. And I've seen what he is actually bringing on board. He has been very busy since the morning in the UK, working, and just returned back when we are about to start. I can assure you that he is having something to actually make sure that we really enjoy his presentation. And that is what I have to say for now. But let's be patient a bit.
So I'll go ahead and conclude the session. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Srividhya, I hope if it is concluded means I can take over the session with how the SDG energy conservation activities role to support the various projects in IGEN, so that we can continue. Then maybe by 2 o'clock the next session SSLA will start.
Yeah, by in another 5 minutes we can conclude it. Okay. So when we talk about equity and justice, which we have mentioned just now, and the second pointer that anybody should keep in mind is the human rights. So the climatic change disproportionately affects the poor and the marginalized. Obviously, we see it around the globe. And of course, it goes unnoticed, and we always pay deaf ears to this. Threatening the basic human rights, including right to life, right to health, right to food, right to water, right to education, right to housing. So addressing these loss and damage is necessarily to uphold these fundamental rights, which are the key for living, for sustainable living. So later on, like what it results to is the intergenerational responsibility. So current generations have a moral duty to future generations to protect the planet. That's how these sessions, these online sessions like this, which will create awareness, which will educate the people, which will involve the youth to take over the charge, such that it will really help for a sustainable living. So failure to address these climatic change now exacerbates the risk and reduces the quality of the future generations, infringing on the right to the stable and healthy environment. So this has to be really taken care. Last but not the least is the second point. Second thing is that global solidarity. The climatic change is a global problem, that is a unique problem, that's a universal problem that requires a collective response. So it cannot be unilateral decision. It cannot be unilateral saying that my country does it, my area does it. It's a universal problem that has to be addressed globally at the global level, universally, and the nation and communities must work together in the show of global solidarity, sharing knowledge, resources, support to manage and mitigate loss and damage. As our president was mentioning, Dr. Kabir, we would like to take your support for our ENERGETHON projects. That's how people should come up. That's how people should initiate. That's how people should come and extend support. Thereby, we can really achieve global solidarity. Thereby, what we will achieve is the prevention of suffering. So, the ethical principle of minimizing this harm obliges those capable of acting to prevent suffering. So the adverse effects of the climatic change are well documented and foreseeable. Inaction or inadequate action constitute to the moral failing to prevent the unforeseeable harm. So that's how it is. And do I have 5 more minutes, Dr. Ramesh? How to address the action for loss and damage. So how to address when these are the problems, we have just placed the problems, we've discussed about the problems, what are the solutions to these problems? So actions to address this loss and damage is that first is that financial support. Wealthier nations and international bodies must provide financial aid to the vulnerable countries to help them cope and recover from the climate-induced losses and damages. Thereby, first thing that we need to work on is the capacity building. That is support in the form of knowledge transfer, technology and training to help the vulnerable countries and communities to develop resilience and adaptive capacities. Thereby, what we need to work on is the policy and the frameworks. So developing international national policies that specifically address the loss and damage, ensure that these policies are fair, just and inclusive, thereby nobody is left behind. So when we just frame out these policies, then is the insurance mechanism, establishing climatic risk insurance and other financial instruments to provide immediate relief and support for recovery in the aftermath of the climate-induced disasters. Thereby, legal and institutional arrangements create a robust legal framework and institutions dedicated to addressing loss and damage, ensuring accountability and enforcing international agreements. So addressing on this loss and damage is merely not a technical and economic challenge, but a profound ethical obligation. It requires urgent, comprehensive and just response to support those most affected to fulfill the shared responsibilities as global citizens. So I think I saw Dr. Eddie Madu joining. Dr. Christian has joined the line, I think. We have been joined by Dr. Christian, I think. Welcome, Dr. Christian. Yeah, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. First, I need to correct that title. I'm not a doctor. Yes, okay. I'm just a master's student. So
thank you.
I'm a learner, so I'm learning from you. So I'm not a doctor. Yes.
It's fine. Thank you. Please go ahead with your presentation if you've got to present. And we had a quite lengthy conversation on loss and damage and moral imperative to act. So
all right,
it's time to hear from you. Thank you.
Please allow him to share his screen. Allow him to share his screen.
He can share his screen though. Thank you.
A minute.
Your screen is visible. Yeah.
Yes.
You can go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Just a moment, please. I'm trying to find the better way to do it so everyone can see my presentation.
Okay, you need to go to the slideshow, which is right on top. File,
Yes.
home, insert slideshow.
Slideshow.
Yes, slideshow. If you click on slideshow from the beginning.
You can check the button where you have the full screen.
Please
where
go
you have
ahead.
the full screen. Okay, that's better.
Yes. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. And the quick one, I am unable to finish it up, so I just have to make it fast and presentable. So my topic this morning and evening here where I am is Sustainable Energy Action Plan 2030. My focus will be on reform, refurbish, and rate. So, first, purpose of CF 2030. So my acronym means CF, which is Sustainable Energy Action Plan. And the document is a strategic document that shows or enhances how the sustainable goal of 2030 will be achieved. And this will be handled by local stakeholders or local authorities. So they are like a body of people come together and based on UN directions on how to achieve this. But in order to achieve this document contains some components, and these components are essential. Example, component number 1, baseline emission inventory, BEI, as acronymized, assess the current state of energy related to climate mitigation. First, before they could make any policy, they need to understand the current state of energy consumption in their localities, and they can do this based on statistics that they could have and on to check if actually they are safe or not. Because for energy consumption, we need to check triple bottom line, that is the society, the environment, and the people. These are the most vocal points that they need to check. So by doing so, they understand the baseline emission inventory. And also, they talked about the risk vulnerability assessment for any consumption, regardless it's energy or not. The risk of adopting sustainable energy and climate action plan. What are the risks? What are the risks involved when it comes to energy consumption? Not only by the producer, that is the company that are giving out this energy in any forms, probably primary energy or secondary, doesn't matter, but what are the risks on environment and the consumer as a whole? Also, they will also have a target, that is a goal to achieve. What is the essence of this gathering? So what are they going to pursue? First, we all know that they have a set goal by the United Nations, which is Sustainable SDG 2030. By this time, a lot of so many countries would have reduced carbon emissions in all ways or in any ramification that is affecting the society as large. And also, we have the measures and the time box. Now, there is a baseline, as we call it in project management. A time box is, when do you want to achieve this? How are you going to do it? What are the nitty-gritty or the intricacies of how to go about this? What date and what are the time frame to achieve this? So they have to work towards this time to ensure that they achieve the SDG on Sustainable Energy Action Plan by 2030. Now, in order to achieve this, they have an ambition action plan. And this, I categorize them into 4 phases. Number 1, consumer model. Second, regulatory and developer models. But let me start from the first item, consumer model. Now, before, who are the consumer? Let me start from there. So the consumer can be the company that gets energy from a vendor, or can also be you and I. So what do we want? How do we, what are the demands? How do you use energy in our own house? So they need to come, we need to understand that how many of us consume energy responsibly? How many of us have 2 bulbs, electric bulbs at home? Some of us have more than that. So how do you use your battery to store energy? Do you use energy that's environmental friendly? These are part of it. So the SERAP have to have a very unique approach by ensuring that consumers understand energy consumption. They have to tell us how we are going to sustain energy without affecting our environment. And regulatory and developer models, these are 2-in-1 item. First, regulatory. There will be a regulations on how to use energy. And not only that, and also the regulation will also covers the vendors, that is the producer or the developer that gives out energy. Energy, I'm talking about, I'm generalizing it, maybe from primary, from anyone, but they have a standard regulations that you must not provide more than certain kilowatt in order not to affect our environment. Not only that, also, what about the devices we use, like TV, laptops, our gadgets, our phone? So, for instance, if you have the latest version of LG, I'm sorry, if your phone or if the TV is on idle for long, next thing you see is there will be a pop-up. It gives us a prompt. Are you still watching, or do you want me to turn off? Now, that instant, that prompt is a message which is well sustainable to ensure that if you are not watching your TV, it will go off anytime soon. So by turning off, it's saving us a lot of energy. Not only that, also a bill, because we pay bill for every energy, single drop of energy we use to power our devices, TV, anything, gadgets we can think of. That is part of the regulatory and developer models. Also, producer and distributor models. What are the ways of providing energy sustainably? For instance, most of the time we rely on getting energy from fossil fuel, but these days, for some countries like UK, trying to integrate renewable energy into their national grid. How? Now, they are using solar system. Not only UK, I know every part of the world are doing that recently. So they have solar panels that can generate light to houses. So in order to reduce the dependence on energy, the primary energy like fossil fuel, they have to have a kind of an innovative energy idea to produce energy that is environmental sustainably. So that is the essence of producer and distributor model. So how are you distributing this energy to us? Is your devices or your gadget or the solar panel sustainable? If it is not, then we need to go back to the roundtable and speak to how we are going to reduce the impact on consumers and also the environment at large. Also, we have the civil society and individual models. The SERAP, like I said, is like strategic plans on how to achieve action plan of 2030. In order to do this, we also need to understand that the impact of civil society is much more than what we can quantify. It is unquantifiable. The civil society knows how to go about this. They can create an engagement gathering tell people the impact of using energy abruptly, and overuse is not advisable. So civil society can enlighten us, create village or communities engagement, sensitization. This is what you should do. This is how to save energy. This is the kind of bulb you should use in your house. You don't buy this kind of electric bulb. Don't buy this kind of, if you have any old items like electric kettle that consumes energy, please change it. I could remember when I got to the UK, that was 2021, when Boris was about to leave. He said, in order for you to save energy, get rid of old electric kettles. And people were just like, oh no, it's not possible. And that is the fact. Most of these gadgets are dead. They are only there just to consume energy. And the more you consume energy, the more bills you pay. Therefore, civil society and individual models are interwoven. They give us an explicit information on how to use energy so that it will not affect the set goals SDP 2030. And also we talked about, the next slide, we talk about the current state of energy consumption. Now, if you remember, during the COVID-19, before the COVID-19 and after the COVID-19, and during the COVID-19, this is 3 phases now. The number of energy we consume during the COVID is was less than what we consumed before and after the COVID. The moment we all emerged or escaped from COVID era, we consume a lot of energy, and that affects our society as a whole. During the COVID, some of us, we hardly drive because we were indoors throughout. Hardly you will see 10 cars in the street, maybe 1 or none, because there was an enforcement that if anyone stepped out from the house, please ensure you arrest the person. So the carbon we emitted during this process was reduced. But the moment we left that confined situation, COVID-19, the energy consumption jumped up because we have every power, or how will I put it, every means to dispose of energy by driving, going back to feed, to a lot of it. And also the recent war that is going on between Russo-Ukrainian war, which Russo-Ukrainian multidimensional crisis. I use the word multidimensional because this war, the current crisis, cut across a lot of human endeavor. We can't, in terms of energy, in terms of ecology, food supply chain, a lot of things have been affected. Now, I'll give an instance. When some countries were given a red time relationship, an hard time relationship with Russia, Russia threatened a country like UK and other countries that, you know what, if you are not supporting the Russian war against Ukraine, we are going to cut our energy or we are going to reduce it. One of the reasons why Russia still remains one of the most powerful voices to be reckoned with in the landscape of Europe is because of the energy. If any country wants to deal with it, you just have to tell you, is either we have a green deal or not. So if you don't buy their crops, then there's going to be a kind of a bitter friendship between them. So now, the crisis have made energy to be scarce to some part of Europe. So some countries are going back to Africa to find a way of getting fossil fuel to enhance their energy supplies. It's not that easy. So it's affecting some countries and making some relationship to be more heated up. Emission increases. The more we use energy on our daily basis, the more we have a lot of emissions going on. And the only way we can do that is using a renewable energy, which we are yet to be there. And the global energy consumption dropped in 2020. That is the first items I was talking about return to pre-pandemic energy consumption. During this period, the consumption of energy dropped because we are indoors and the only thing we have used when it comes to energy is just within the confine of the household, not more than that. And also we have the last one is renewable energy consumption increases by 17% in 2021. That is immediately after I'm talking about the post-pandemic energy consumption. So the consumption of energy increases by 17% in 2021. Here is my analysis after I collected some data from International Energy Association. So number one, you can see, and this is how it goes. And during this period, people move from oil or natural or primary energy production to renewables. And that's why we have a lot of countries, sorry for that, moved from primary to secondary. And that's why we have renewables to be 600, which means a lot of people fall into this bracket. And let me see if I can use my, okay. So a lot of countries moved off from primary energy production to renewables.
We've got another 10 minutes with you, Mr. Christian.
10 minutes. I'm sorry. Okay, then. We have environmental risk assessment of the current energy consumption. What are the risk assessments when it comes to energy consumption? Number one is greenhouse emissions. The more we use energy, at least the world, households contribute at least 81% to the total energy consumption in the world. So whatever we use right here escape to the atmosphere and it affects it. Also, climate change, how it affects climate change. Energy consumption definitely affects climate change by emitting carbon monoxide. So we have excess of it and it affects our entire environment. And also habitat alienation. During the process of extracting fossil fuel, it affects habitat execution, probably some natural habitats in ecology, it affects them. So permit me to play this video. I don't know if I have enough time to do that, but just give me a minute, please. It's a very short video. I make sure I work between my time frame.
I think we can go ahead with your presentation because the video is not loading.
Let's examine the environmental impacts of energy.
You can continue with your presentation, Mr. Christian. Mr. Christian?
Yeah?
You can go ahead with your presentation.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
Sorry.
You can just conclude because there is no time again. You can just conclude.
Okay. So, here are my recommendations. My recommendations quite enormous, but I'll just make it quick. Let's support policy reforms. So policy reforms has to do with how we use energy and how to ensure that it is environmentally friendly. Also, let us invest in infrastructure refurbishment. If you have an old infrastructures, it is advisable to recreate them and re-embellish them and ensure that they have the capacity to meet up with the modern usage. We also need to embrace smart grid technology, encourage innovation and technology adoption, and engage in circular economy practices. And lastly, we should consume energy responsibly. In our household, let us try as much as possible to preach the good talk. Like, if you're not using anything, just make sure you turn it off. Don't let it continue to operating while you're not using it. It's not ideal. It affects the environment. And lastly, this is my conclusion. All right. Thank you, Doctor, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Yes, we do agree with that point of Sustainable Energy Action Plan, and this is the need for reforming the policies and refurbishing infrastructure and recreating energy system to ensure a sustainable future by fostering renewable energy efficiency and innovative technologies that aim to reduce the environmental impact while promoting economic and social benefits. Plan success hinges on collaborative efforts of government, business, and communities. That's what the whole session is all about. Thank you so much. Well, we have come to the end of the session. Basically, our key takeaways of the loss and damage in the context of the climatic change with adaptation limits is a key point to understanding the loss and damages, and the loss or claims of the disproportionately experienced in the vulnerable developing countries. With future losses and damages will raise the increased global warming and the limitation to adaptation, stopping to protect against climatic impacts. Dr. Adibisi, would you like to add your inferences? Please go ahead. Thank you. Would like to hear from you.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for the patience. We that we are in the business of the online or virtual conferences witness these very cases at times, and we manage it very effectively. And also, I want to thank Dr. Sukumar for that very wonderful opportunity given to our team, and also thank you, Mr. Christian, for that very presentation. It was very impromptu because we were thinking about tomorrow, not knowing that India today is your tomorrow of India is actually today here. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful conference and happy deliberation. Thank you so much.
So, well, you have really caught hold of loss and damage and moral imperative to act, and you've acted on time. Thank you so much. Well, on that note, Dr. Tanuja, ma'am, would you like to add something?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Christian and Dr. Saheed, for your wonderful insights on addressing the points on loss and damage due to climate change. So I would like to add one more point about the CDM, that is Clean Development Mechanism, must be followed for each and every projects. And as Dr. Christian said about the renewable energy consumptions, so the projects, what are the green projects must be carried out and green technologies to be followed. to prevent the loss and damage. These points, with that note, I call Sunil sir to give a conclusion note for this session. Thank you. And also, I thank Jessica for adding her insights on loss and damage in our session. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Dr.
so much.
Sunil, sir. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Over to Sunil, sir.
First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the speakers who have delivered us very insightful thoughts on addressing the loss and damages. That is an essential aspect of the moral imperative to act on the sustainable principles. Here, they have developed a different scenario. They have discussed about the different scenarios that the moral imperative to engage in dialogue and take actions toward the sustainable practice, such as the reducing consumptions, reusing resources, recycling materials, and so on. So, on that note, I would like to thank once again to all the speakers, especially by Srividhya ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dr. Srividhya, it is a very happy note. Now the time is 2 o'clock and we achieved the new world record. Last year it is 19.36 and now we achieved the new world record, that is 20 hours. That is a marathon end in 20 hours, another still 4 more hours to go. So with your session, we achieved that record.
Sure. Good,
Thank
good,
you.
good. Thank you.
Thank you, doctors. Thank you
so much. Thank you, Dr. Dibisi. Thank you, Mr. Christian. That was a wonderful presentation. So we sum it up. I've got 1 minute. So before that, end of the day, it's about environmental sustainable governance that we're talking about. And it stands for environmental social governance, and it's a framework that helps the stakeholders like us to understand how an organization or a country or a community can manage risk with opportunities that are related to the environment and social governance criteria. Sometimes they're called as ESG factors. So the ESG factors takes a holistic view that the sustainability extends beyond just environmental issues that has evolved from the other historical movements. Movement like as Dr. Ramesh was mentioning, that they have achieved that we have achieved together, that we have achieved the world record. Some historical movements like this. Now we are on a very happier note, that's in the positive note. Sometimes it will have the negative note that can be focused on the health and safety issues, the pollution reduction, corporate philanthropy. So in that line, that IGEN partnered with Educate Global partnered with IGEN Global, such that emerging with a class of ESG specialists like us in supporting the net zero and the carbon neutrality goals, that has organized, that has come up with this great event of IGEN ENERGATHON 2024, and it has been really a historical moment for us.
And it is a, see the reason, there is a lot of kind-hearted people are there. You see, time is 2 o'clock and around 200 people are watching in the YouTube. It was a very wow moment that so the students across the globe and the members across the globe are supporting us. It states that, and very happy note, we are moving together. Maybe we will able to get very good recommendation. So that recommendation will be helpful to fine tune the COP29.
Thank you, and many sincere thanks to all the beloved students who have joined us on the student panel meet. Mr. Nadimo Daniel, Mr. Dinesh from Russia, Mr. Denkish Tamrat, Miss Denkish Tamrat from Ethiopia, Ms. Nurul Huda, Ms. Mihil Alexandru from Romania, Mr. Mohammed Yamin from Bangladesh, Ms. Sabani Mohanty from UK, Ms. Monisha from UAE, Ms. Jessica Anabor from Germany, Miss Sandy from South Africa, Mr. George from Peru, Mr. Abhishek Singh from Australia, Mr. Ashmer Zaya from India, Mr. Ankur Goel from North America, Mr. Edwin from Ghana, Ms. Mehran Fida from Pakistan, Mr. Royce from Uganda. Big round of applause for all the student volunteers and the IGEN team, Mr. Niranjan, Mr. Krishna, and all the backstage team who have worked with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Srividhya ma'am, for the eminent speakers and honorable guests and very insightful topics. Happy to with you, ma'am.
If you have time, you can join by the valedictory also, 5:30.